welcome. You are from the San Diego area.
That's right.
And you are here with the kids from Camp Joshua, the group training to be great pro-life leaders. They're young people, high schoolers here in Portland, and you had kind of a fun exercise today. What did you have the kids do that was kind of unique?
Yeah, well, today we had them go out to downtown Portland and basically use an informal survey tool, just a yes or no question about abortion. What is their opinion about abortion? And begin to sort of walk up to people and ask these people to fill out this survey. And as a result of that, they can get into conversations about abortion. And this really is the culmination of a 2-day training where yesterday what I did was I spent about 8 hours where I trained them in a lecture format in the art of pro-life persuasion. So talking about the scientific and philosophical reasons why we believe that abortion kills an innocent human being. And so that day, yesterday, basically entails not just lecture format, but then we look at specific tactics on how to make this case. How do you persuasively package the arguments to persuade other people? And then I have them role play it. So we break into small groups, and then one person pretends to be the abortion choice advocate, the other person pretends to be the pro-lifer, and they get to role play the tactics that they just learned. And so this kind of gives a second kind of element to their training. So they're not just learning it and listening to it and asking questions, they're actually trying to vocalize it and verbalize it so that it becomes sort of more comfortable. And again, the reason why we do this is because we were trying to train them. But the key element then becomes today, which is then when we take what they've learned, they take all the skills, they take all the tactics, and then they put it into practice talking to people who completely disagree with them.
Which is a scary thing to do.
It is a scary thing to do, and they were very nervous.
Yeah,
but now, looking at them afterwards, they feel so much more confident to be able to share their convictions about the pro-life issue. And that's because it wasn't just a matter of sitting in a lecture format and listening to what somebody's saying, but internalizing it through role play and then actually going out and talking to people about their pro-life views. And of course, naturally, you're going to run into people who disagree with them. And now they have to rely upon the training they had the day before, use those tactics and skills to be able to engage people. And by doing that, it forces them to learn the material in such a way that I would call this actual training. This is real training, not just listening to a lecture.
You're right. It's in practice. Well, is science and the truth on the pro-life position? For people watching and saying, you know, where are you people coming from? Why is it so important that we understand that science and truth are good players here? Yeah,
well, science and truth are definitely on our side. In fact, I oftentimes speak at secular universities, Central Michigan University, USC. I'll sometimes do a presentation where I'll get up on a stage and for 20 or 30 minutes articulate the pro-life view from a scientific and philosophical perspective and allow anyone in the university audience to come up and debate me.
Wow.
And so they'll take an hour taking turns trying to present their views and debate my views. Now, people say to me, well, man, that seems really, really difficult. How could you possibly do that? And the reason is because we have all the scientific evidence on our side.
Excellent.
In fact, in one university situation, the biology department offered their students extra credit if they attended my presentation and debunked my scientific arguments.
They're that desperate.
That's right. And what was interesting about it is they weren't able to do that. And I don't say that as a way to boast about my abilities. It has nothing to do with it. It certainly has something to do with it. But the fact is, the reason I can do this is because all the science about when does life begin is on our side. Life begins at a conception, and all the scientific, biological textbooks that address this question all agree with us.
So you're saying this isn't a religious issue. This is something scientists have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt. Life begins at conception.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly people with religious convictions certainly have reasons to believe that abortion is wrong because it kills an innocent human being. But we don't even rely on those arguments at all. In fact, oftentimes when I've debated a women's rights professor, people have listened to the debate, come up to me after and said, are you now a religious person? And do you have any religious convictions? And I said, yes, I do have religious convictions. But they said, oh, okay, because I was wondering, because you didn't say anything about the Bible or God. And I said, that's because you don't need to appeal to God or to your religious convictions to make a compelling case, a persuasive and gracious, compelling case for the pro-life view. All I have to do is appeal to embryology, which I believe the science of embryology is decisive on the question of when human life begins.
So it's kind of like biology 101. Human life, a new human life begins at conception, and all the DNA and everything is there through the whole 9 months of pregnancy.
That's right.
Nothing magical gets added afterward. Do you think the average person knows that?
I don't think the average person knows that. But if you look at any kind of standard embryology textbook from college, or anything related to biology like that, most of them acknowledge that readily. They say an individual life begins at conception. In fact, even many pro-choice philosophers acknowledge, like David Boonin and Peter Singer, who are probably some of the top abortion choice advocates in our country. They even acknowledge in their own writings that an individual human life begins at conception.
Well, you know, that is something I wanted to ask you about then. You have to sometimes go to the next step. When somebody acknowledges what you're saying is true, the unborn child is a human being, an innocent human being, and then they go that step further and say, but I want it to be killed anyway. What do we do with that?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, this is actually happening in our country.
This is probably the most. You mean abortion?
No,
or
that someone would say that.
Yes, this is probably the most common
It's
view.
coming up. My gosh.
They would say something like, and actually even
I don't believe it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a lot of people express this view. They say, I'm personally opposed to abortion because I think it kills an innocent human being. And of course they think this because the science is decisive on this question. They said, but I wouldn't want to force other people, or I don't think we should make it illegal.
Seriously.
Yes. And so my next question to anybody who expresses this is, tell me, why are you personally against abortion? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say something like, well, I'm personally against it because I think it kills a baby. And then I say to them, let me replay back to you what I think you've just told me. You think abortion kills an innocent baby, but you don't want to force our culture to make it illegal to kill babies? And they say, oh, well, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound so good. And I'm saying, I didn't put it this way. Isn't this your view? If I've mistaken your view, explain to me, you can go ahead and correct me. But my understanding is that you think it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to have an abortion because it kills a baby, but you think it should be illegal to kill babies, which is a bizarre view. And this is simply because our culture has been saturated with relativism.
Ooh.
The idea that what's right and wrong is up to you, is up to the individual. And so though they have personal convictions perhaps that abortion kills a baby, they don't want to tell another person that you shouldn't do that.
Do you find that people that say that, I can't put my view on you, or have things they certainly would push their view? I mean, is that happening a lot?
That's the inconsistency in their view.
Yeah.
In most any other circumstance, for example, racism or slavery, they'd say, well, no one would say, I'm personally against slavery, but I wouldn't want to make it illegal to own a slave.
Or killing turtles. Or what?
Right.
No.
Well, turtles might be a different thing because there's some people that might have a different view on that. But with regards to slavery, you never see a person say, I'm personally against slavery, but I don't think we should make it illegal to own slaves. Right. They would never express relativism on that issue because it's so well understood.
Yeah.
But you think, well, then why would they do this with the issue of abortion? Why would they say, I'm personally against killing babies, but I don't want to make it illegal to kill babies?
Yeah.
That seems completely inconsistent.
And when you point that out, then it kind of makes them think.
Well, surprisingly, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I guess when you express it this way, it doesn't sound so good. And I've had people, and again, I'm not saying this because of anything, I'm not trying to boast about it, but a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, I guess I should change my view on this.
Interesting.
Now, this isn't the case in Portland, with the average person on the street, but a lot of people express this. In fact, our informal survey has questions like this. It'll say, do you think it's wrong to have an abortion for the sake of birth control? Meaning you just want to not have a baby and so it's okay to just have an abortion. And they'll say, yes, I think it's wrong. But the next question is, well, do you think it should be made illegal to have an abortion for birth control reasons? And they'll say, no, I don't want to make it illegal. So this is at the heart of relativism. They think it's wrong, but they don't want to make it illegal.
Yes.
And this is the vast majority of people, even in downtown Portland, that think this way.
Well, you're an educator out here, and we've got 25 or so young people in Portland. We do this once a year, and I don't know how many other states are working hard with their young people to build up their pro-life convictions. But what way do you think we can educate the American public. Because, like you say, they're conflicted. They're kind of, well, I don't know. I never thought about that. We're
Yeah.
getting a lot of. Do we need? What's the best avenue? Is it Hollywood? Is it the media? Is it the school system? Do you have an idea what we can do?
Well, you mean to change the culture in general about
Well,
this
to
issue, or-
educate John Q. Public that isn't
Well-
going to hear this at his church or Oregon Right to Life or whatever, you know.
Well, I mean, my work is precisely about educating and changing minds about abortion, and I believe that if we can change enough minds, we can eventually change public opinion.
Yeah.
And once you change public opinion, you can change public policy.
Yeah.
So my goal is to equip other people who are passionate about the pro-life view, how to persuasively change people's minds on this issue. And I think one of the key things to do is to help people see that abortion is not a complex issue. People think it's a complex issue. They
It's their
think,
favorite thing to say.
right, oh, abortion is so complex.
Yeah.
And I say, actually, it's rather simple. There's only one question that needs to be resolved. And that question is, what is the unborn? And just think about this. If you were one evening doing the dishes and you had a 5-year-old son that came up behind you and asked you, Mommy or Daddy, can I kill this? Well, what question do you have to ask him before you can answer his question?
What have you got?
Yeah, what have you got? What is it? So imagine you turn around, he's holding a spider. Well, of course it's okay to kill the spider.
That's what I'd say.
If he's holding a cat, it's like, you know, if you're a dog lover, maybe. But if he's holding his little sister by the neck, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And what this illustration points out is whether or not it's moral to kill something depends entirely upon what it is we're killing.
Yes.
And that's why the question, what is the unborn, is the key question.
Okay.
If the unborn turns out to not be a human being, then go ahead, kill
Have
it.
as many
Kill it.
abortions
Have
as
as
you
many
want.
abortions as you like. Do whatever you
Right.
want. What's the big deal?
It's not.
However, if the unborn is a human being, then there's no reason that would justify having an abortion.
Is that what you say to the people that say it should be rare? Well, why then? If there's nothing wrong with it, right?
That's right, exactly. It is why. So I try to point out that the key question is, what is the unborn, you know? Because people say, well, women should have the freedom to choose. Well, do they have the freedom to choose to kill their 5-year-old? No, of course not. Well, so then choice isn't the issue. Because if the unborn is just like that 5-year-old, then they can't kill the unborn for choice for the same reason they can't kill the 5-year-old for choice. And so they'll say, well, but that's different. The unborn is not a human being. Well, that's the key question. Is the unborn a human being? And that's why I always want to bring it back to this key question. What is the unborn?
And science is on our side.
Yeah, and then of course if they say, you're right, that is the key question, and then you can say, all right, well then, let's answer it. What is the unborn? Well, clearly the unborn is a human being, and I break it down into 3 parts. The unborn is alive, I'll argue. I'll argue that the unborn is also a distinct individual being, unique from its mother. And also the third thing is that it's a human being. So if you can show from science that the unborn is alive, separate and distinct from its mother's body, and also a human being, then you can show that the unborn is a human being. Well, let's take each one of them in turn. The unborn is alive. Well, that's probably the least controversial, right? It's growing,
Yes.
and it meets the biological criteria
Dead
for life.
things don't grow.
That's right, dead things don't grow. Well, crystals grow, but biologists have a way of determining whether something's alive. They say if it metabolizes, if it grows, and it responds to stimuli, then it's a living thing. And the unborn does all 3 things. So we know it's alive. Well, is it a part of the mother's body, like her appendix or her tonsils, or is it a separate individual, unique being? And again, the science of embryology is decisive on this. You can simply look at the DNA of the unborn and determine that it has its own unique DNA that is separate and completely different than the mother's.
Right.
It has its
The
own
DNA.
brain, it's got its own heart, its own circulatory system. In fact, if the mother's blood and the child's blood was to mix, the mother's body would mount an immune response against the unborn baby.
Right.
Because the mother's body perceives the unborn to be a foreign body. If the unborn was just part of her appendix,
Right.
then the mother's immune system would not attack it.
Uh-huh.
But if there's ever a mix, there's a problem, then the mother's body attacks that unborn with its immune system, which is an evidence and testimony that the unborn is perceived by the mother's own body as a foreign person, a foreign thing. So we know the unborn is alive, distinct from its mother's body, and then we have to ask them the question, what kind of being is it? Is it a dog being?
Yeah.
Is it a human being?
Yeah.
Is it a chicken being? And there's a
Yeah.
very simple way we can answer this question, and that is simply to ask, what are its parents?
Yes.
If its parents are humans, there's no way that the unborn will not be a human. Because in every other instance, for example, when 2 dogs mate, they always produce another dog.
Yes.
When lions mate, they produce another lion. And so even though maybe, for example, my wife and I wondered whether we were going to have a boy or a girl, it's not like we wondered whether we're going to have a human or not.
Yes.
Because we're human beings,
Yes.
our offspring has to be human. This
That's
is just
true.
a basic principle of biology.
Not religion, that's science.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so there you've just shown very quickly that from science we know that the unborn is alive, separate and unique from the mother's body, and also a human type of being. And this is what we mean by the unborn is a human being.
Well,
all from the moment of conception.
Well, you're probably hearing all the crazy arguments out there that have ever been thrown at us, and I know you probably have a ton of stories, and you never know what's going to come from the other side, because sometimes it's shocking what they believe exactly. But one of the things I wondered if you ever heard or have a response to the one that I've seen on the pro-aborts blogs is an acorn is not an oak tree. So therefore they're saying, it's that human embryo is not a person, right? Is that their main point
they're
for
saying,
that one?
they'll say
is that what they're trying to get at on that?
Exactly. They'll say an acorn is not an oak, but it's a potential oak.
Oh yeah.
And in the same way, the embryo or the unborn is not a human; it's a potential human.
Yeah. You hear that.
Yeah, you hear this fairly
you
often.
Probably get it.
Yeah, you get it quite often. And there's probably two things that need to be clarified about this. First of all, the statement that the embryo is not a human but a potential human is just scientifically inaccurate.
Okay.
There's no reputable scientist would ever say that the unborn is a potential human.
Oh, okay.
Because in biology you have a thing called taxonomy, which is a way to give a biological address to every living thing. Every plant, every animal has a biological identity. And so since the unborn is a living thing, it also has an identity. And there's no way around the fact that it is not a fully human being. Okay. If you were to evaluate its DNA, you would not determine that it's an ant or a dog or a Venus flytrap. You would figure out it's a human type of being.
Yeah.
So it's not a potential human, it is a human being.
Yes.
So that was probably the first thing I might say to somebody.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say regarding this acorn is not an oak but a potential oak is a misunderstanding between the difference between stages of development and what the nature of a thing is. So it turns out an acorn is an oak. An acorn is simply an oak at the seed stage.
Oh, that's so true.
And then after an acorn grows a little bit larger, it becomes it buds and it becomes a sapling, and then it becomes a tree, then it becomes a full-on adult. But all throughout its development, it's always an oak being. And the lesson here is that living things always change and have a different look throughout different stages of development.
Yes, just like we do.
Just like we do.
That's a good point.
So the embryo is a human being, but at the first stage of development.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a fetus, then it becomes a newborn, then it becomes a teenager, and then an adult, and then an elderly person.
All these different names.
All those different stages of development are just different stages of development.
I love it.
But the unborn, but in every single instance, you still have a human being.
Yeah.
Even a more obvious example is a monarch. Now, a monarch we think of as this beautiful butterfly. But a monarch goes through multiple stages. It begins as a little egg on a plant. Then it becomes a caterpillar. Then it becomes a chrysalis. Then it becomes a butterfly. And all four of those stages look completely different.
Yeah.
But in every single one of those stages, you still have a monarch. When it's a caterpillar, it's still a monarch. When it's a chrysalis, it's still a monarch. And when it's a butterfly, it's still a monarch.
Okay.
So again, living things look different at different stages of development, but they always remain the same biological thing.
That's a really good way to put it. I love it. Well, I've learned so much just sitting here. I want to take your class. Can I go back to high school next year? Probably not. Well, that's okay.
No, but we actually have a lot of this on our website.
Oh.
Most of the stuff that we talk about is available freely on our website.
And tell the website?
It's www.str.org.
We'll run that on the screen so people can go. And this is a place where people can see videos, and you have a radio show also.
Yeah, we have a radio show. That's
information for reports or just learning
we have
yourself.
Commentaries, we have blogs, we have video blogs.
And that stands for Stand to Reason, right?
Yeah, Stand to Reason, str.org.
Perfect.
And then we also have a student version of that site, and that's strplace.org.
And is there a link to that on
There's a
the
link to that
website?
on the main
So
site.
people can just go there and find everything they need.
That's right. There's a student site. And that student site has a lot more video. In fact, every week we post at least one video.
That's really good you know, that's good.
Yeah.
And so, because you can't always fly in to, you can't be here and hold our hand every
That's
time
right.
we have this
That's right.
argument. So
That's right.
I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming here to share your enthusiasm with the young people. I can tell how much they're learning and how much they appreciate the help to be ministers of the pro-life point of view in this sometimes very dark place and hard to be in Portland, Oregon, when you're in the minority. It's hard to be in the minority on the college campus as well. And you know, thinking back all the times you've stepped on that college campus where the viewpoint was hostile to ours, and you know, all the different people you've met. I gotta ask, do you have hope? Do you believe that we are going to win this battle? Do you think abortion will become illegal in our lifetime?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do have hope. In fact, I see the culture actually shifting, and I believe it's actually moving in our direction, in terms of the pro-life direction. Whether that happens in our lifetime, I'm not sure. I mean, with recent U.S. Supreme Court justices that have been appointed, it's not doesn't look good in that sense. But again, I believe that kind of a two-pronged approach is necessary. We need to address it from the political standpoint, from a legal and political standpoint, but also we need to change minds kind of on the ground. And as you change enough minds, as I mentioned earlier, you eventually change public opinion, which eventually is reflected in public policy.
Yes.
So I think slowly this is the direction our culture is moving in with regards to the pro-life view.
Yeah.
So I am hopeful. I mean, obviously you can't predict when that'll happen.
Yeah.
But I believe the pro-life issue is an issue that is winnable, very winnable actually.
I'm so
Because
glad.
again, it's like there's so much evidence on our side,
Yeah.
and we're seeing young people, this whole new generation of young people, be very, very passionate about this issue. And if we can also be careful, or I should say, be strategic, and couch this as a human rights issue, I think other people can rally around that. They may not necessarily always agree with everything we say, because it is a human rights issue.
So atheists should believe this.
Well, I think everybody should.
Everybody should believe this because it's a science.
Right, because what it is we have human beings that are unquestionably human beings that are being discriminated against and being killed. And this has happened in history before.
Is this the biggest human rights issue of our time?
Oh, definitely. Because even according to Planned Parenthood's own statistics, 3,500 unborn children are killed every single day. And again, this is according to Planned Parenthood's own data. So 3,500 a day just in the United States accounts for millions just in the United States, not even including worldwide.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to let you go, Alan,
Okay.
but I thank you so much for coming, and I wish you well in all your future debates and wonderful weeks like this in Portland. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Gayle Atteberry, Executive Director of Oregon Right to Life, and you jumped in for this fabulous few days you're having with Camp Joshua, with young people coming together to learn the pro-life message and most of all how to change hearts.
Yes.
Why is it important to do this?
Well, I'm getting old, Luann. That's why it's important.
I know that one.
And
I know that one.
we need to pass the baton to the younger generation. And Camp Joshua is exactly that. This is what, I think we've been doing it 10 or 12 years now, and our vision was we need to pass the baton to a younger generation, and we need to train them. We need to show them the way, tell them what we've learned, and to pick kids that want to be leaders, pro-life leaders. And that's what Camp Joshua is about, is kids that want to be pro-life leaders in their sphere, or go out into the big sphere, whatever they want to do. So we start Camp J. It's 4 days now, and during spring break, and we have the best of the kids that come. We have so much fun. And
I can tell just by being here with them.
They're just fun, and we stuff them full of information. They go away transformed. Most of them are they are pro-life when they come, but sometimes they come because their parents have wanted them to come, or they're just something to do on spring break, and they just want to test it out. They go away transformed, and they are filled, and they are excited. And these kids, we've seen through the years, we've seen these kids go back into their communities, their church, or their school, or their town, or their college, or their high school, and do amazing things.
I believe you. I do. And I know, I couldn't believe it. You took them downtown Portland today to just stop people on the street
Yes.
and talk about
Pro-life, yeah.
pro-life questions and informal survey, and they actually did it. What were you thinking listening to them talk about their experience?
Well, I am so excited because my end question to them was today's experience worthwhile, and everyone said yes.
Yeah.
And that's what this all is about. Because most of us are afraid. We might have the commitment to be pro-life, but we're afraid. Well, maybe they'll ask me something I don't know what the answer to, or maybe they'll pin me in the corner, or what do I say? And so our goal for this whole Camp Joshua, and in particular today, is to not first to learn how to dialogue with someone about your pro-life views, and then to try it out. And that's what we went out to downtown Portland for, is to try it out. And the kids are, when they come down, when they're driving up, and then you see them afterwards, and you saw them afterwards.
They're bursting with enthusiasm.
Yes.
And I think it's so nice because even if you're not engaged in a formal debate with, in a formal situation, your own family needs this information. We all have
That's
this.
right. And these kids, every one of them go to school, and they're surrounded by kids, and that call themselves pro-choice, and I said the majority of them call them pro-choice for lack of information.
Yeah, we're finding that out.
And so this is to fill our kids with information, and then to help them give that information to their friends. And they go out into the community, and they're changing their friends' minds.
I am so impressed, and I'm so excited to observe these beautiful young people, and you're here. You could be somewhere else in spring break. You're here with them and enjoying their enthusiasm and encouraging them.
It helps me. It's encouraging for me.
Well, I want to thank you for that, and I want people to understand how they can participate, or if they know a young person. This is spring break in Oregon. Every year you do this, and it's on the website where they can find out information. It's called Camp Joshua, and it's held in a beautiful place in the Salem area.
Yes.
Gayle, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's fun.